Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties, Chapter 86.
I want you to picture a specific kind of pain.
Okay.
Not a battlefield wound, not a broken heart. I'm talking about a toothache.
A toothache, really?
Just a nagging, throbbing, ordinary toothache. Because today, we're looking at a moment in history where a single toothache, effectively eclipsed the collapse of an entire empire.
Wow.
We're diving into Chapter 86 of the classic novel Su Tangyanyi, or Romance of the Sui and Tang Dynasties.
And honestly, it's a wild chapter. It reads less like ancient history and more like a modern corporate case study in what I'd call executive burnout.
That is exactly the angle that hooked me. On the surface, this is a high-stakes romance about Emperor Runzong and his famous concubine Yang Guifei.
Mm-hmm. We all know the names.
Exactly. But under the hood, this source is a manual on how to destroy an organization or a dynasty by surrounding yourself with yes men and just refusing to read the bad news.
It really is. We're in the Tianbo era of the Tang Dynasty. And to the naked eye, this is the golden age. There's peace. There's, unimaginable wealth. The arts are flourishing. It's the peak.
The absolute peak.
But the source material, right on page 1, it just throws a bucket of cold water on that image.
It mentions the Diligent Administration Tower.
It does. A building meant to symbolize the emperor's tireless work ethic, diligent administration. But the text explicitly calls it a bad joke.
A bad joke, really.
Yeah. It says the name is empty because the emperor is, quote, weary.
And that's our starting point. The CEO is checked out. But before we get to the collapsing borders and all that, the text opens with this really dense philosophical bit on the concept of vows.
Right.
I had to read this twice because it felt like a detour, but it's not, is it?
No, not at all. It's the moral foundation of the whole chapter. The author brings up this Buddhist concept of oaths. The idea is that when you make a solemn vow, you aren't just talking to yourself.
Okay.
Spirits and ghosts in the unseen world are witnessing it. It's like a binding contract with the universe.
So be careful what you wish for, but with, supernatural consequences.
Precisely. And the text is using this to critique Emperor Huanzong. He's famous for this romantic pledge he made with Lady Yang in the Hall of Longevity.
Oh, right.
They swore to be husband and wife in every future life. It's the ultimate forever.
Which, you gotta admit, sounds incredibly romantic. I don't just want you now, I want you for all of eternity.
It is romantic, but the text frames it as spiritually negligent. The argument is, you're praying for happiness in future lives, but you're actively squandering the blessings of your current life.
Just your current power, your peace.
Your entire empire, these are the results of past karma. And you're just burning through that capital by ignoring your job.
That's a fascinating take. It's like praying for a new car while you're busy driving your current one off a cliff.
That is the perfect analogy, and the driving off a cliff part isn't a metaphor. Immediately after this philosophy lesson, the emperor makes a career decision. He quiet quits.
He does. He says, quote, "I'm getting old and I am weary of politics."
Which is relatable. I mean, everyone gets tired.
Sure, but usually you take a sabbatical. You don't just hand the keys to the kingdom to your chaotic cousins.
Well, that's exactly what he does. He delegates all domestic affairs to the prime minister, Yang Guzong, and he hands border security to his generals. And then he asks this question that is just pure dramatic irony. What is there to worry about?
What is there to worry about? That's the cue for the disaster movie music to start playing. Because while he's asking that, the South is effectively on fire.
This is the Nanzhao disaster. And to understand the scale of this, we have to look at the map. We're talking about the region that's, modern-day Yunnan.
The text mentions 6 zhaos. I wanted to clarify this for everyone listening. Is zhao a place or a title?
It's a good question. It's a term that refers to a decree, but here it really just refers to the tribes or the kingdoms.
So 6 tribes in the region.
Exactly. And the king of the southern tribe, the Meng Shizhao, was a guy named Piluj, and he was incredibly ambitious.
The text says he actually bribed the Tang border officials.
Right. He paid them to look the other way while he conquered the other 5 tribes.
So the Tang inadvertently funded the creation of a superstate on their own border.
They thought they were creating a unified buffer state. Let them handle the South. Instead, they created a powerful rival. Once Piluj had all that power, he didn't need the Tang anymore. He rebelled.
And this is where the executive burnout we talked about becomes
lethal. Absolutely lethal. The Tang send an army to fix this.
Right. They send General Shan Yuzongtong, and he gets crushed. It's a total humiliation.
But the emperor doesn't know.
No.
And this is the dictator's dilemma. The general is buddies with the prime minister, Yang Guzong. If they tell the truth, they look bad, they lose face, and they disturb the emperor's peace.
So they just don't.
They don't. Yang Guzong suppresses the report. He tells the emperor it was a victory.
That is such a dangerous game. It's not just lying. It's rewriting reality. But then it happens again, right, on a much bigger scale. They send General Li Mi next.
Yes, and the stakes are massive this time. Li Mi marches south with 70,000 troops.
70,000. That is a city on the move.
And the text is brutal here. It says they were completely wiped out, the entire army. Gone.
70,000 families losing a father or a son. In any functioning government, the alarms would be ringing off the hook. Every news outlet would be screaming.
But in the Tang court, silence. Yang Guzong hides the defeat again. He reports another victory.
Unbelievable.
So you have this terrifying information vacuum. The emperor is sitting in his palace, genuinely believing his borders are secure, believing his generals are invincible, while the empire is just bleeding out. The text says, no one dared speak the truth.
Because the mechanism for truth has been completely broken. If you speak up, you're not just reporting news. You're attacking the prime minister and ruining the emperor's retirement.
Exactly. You become the problem, so everyone stays quiet. But the south isn't even the biggest threat. While the emperor is ignoring Yunnan, there's a much bigger shark swimming in the water.
An Lushan.
An Lushan.
We have to talk about An Lushan. Even if you don't know Chinese history, you might know this name. He is the big bad of the era.
He is. At this point in the story, he's a general controlling 3 massive border regions, Funyang, Pinglu, and Hedong. He commands the most battle-hardened troops in the entire empire.
And unlike the disaster in the south, someone actually tries to warn the emperor about this one.
Yes, the eunuch Gao Lishi. Now, eunuchs often get a bad rap in historical fiction as the villains, but here, Gao Lishi is the voice of reason.
The only one paying attention.
He's the only one looking at the dashboard and seeing all the red lights flashing. He tells the emperor straight up, and Lushan has alien ambitions. He's planning a coup.
And for a second, it looked like Xuanzang might actually listen. They come up with a plan that I thought was actually pretty brilliant.
It was a classic kick-him-upstairs maneuver, proposed by a minister named Wei Jiansu. The idea was to promote An Lushan to a high civil office in the capital, a pingzongshi, which is basically a chancellor role.
Right. Congratulations on the promotion. Please report to the head office immediately.
Exactly. Leave your army, come get your medal. To accept the job, he has to leave his base. Once he's in the capital, you strip his command and split his army among 3 other ministers.
You declaw the tiger without firing a shot.
It's smart. It avoids a civil war. It saves face for everyone, and Xuanzang agrees to it.
So, why doesn't it happen?
Because he hesitates, and worse, he talks. He goes back to the inner palace and mentions the plan to Yang Guifei.
And this is where the love part of our title becomes the problem part. What's Yang Guifei's stance on An Lushan?
It's complicated. She finds him entertaining. You know, in the novel, he's a novelty to her, this rough barbarian general who plays the clown. But more importantly, she knows her cousin, the prime minister, Yang Gosong, hates An Lushan. She's worried that if An Lushan comes to the capital without his army, her cousin will have him killed.
So she's viewing a national security crisis through the lens of family drama.
Precisely. She isn't thinking about the empire, she's thinking about the palace dynamic. So she convinces the emperor to slow down. She suggests sending an observer first to check if he's actually rebellious.
Which defeats the whole purpose of a surprise promotion.
Completely. If you send an observer, you tip your hand. They send a eunuch named Mu Lin to observe An Lushan. But of course, An Lushan has spies everywhere. He knows Mu Lin is coming.
This is the part that reads like a spy thriller. Yulin arrives, probably looking for signs of treason.
And An Lushan is just waiting with a smile and a bag of gold.
Golden silk.
Right. He bribes Mu Lin heavily. So the envoy Mu Lin takes the money, goes back to the capital, and what do you think he reports?
He lies. Of course he lies.
He says An Lushan is loyal to the country. He has no 2 hearts.
And the emperor buys it.
He wants to buy it. That's the key psychological point. The lie is comfortable. The truth that his favorite general is a traitor and he has to go to war, that's stressful.
So he takes the easy way out.
He accepts the lie. He even scolds the prime minister for being suspicious and says, I guarantee An Lushan's loyalty myself.
He stakes his own reputation on a complete fabrication. And just like that, the one chance to stop the collapse of the Tang dynasty evaporates.
It's gone. And with the An Lushan problem theoretically solved, the narrative shifts gears so hard it gives you whiplash. We go from political intrigue straight into extreme, aggressive luxury.
The Huaqing Palace.
The Huaqing Palace. The text spends a lot of time describing this place, I think, to show just how detached from reality they've become. 16 thermal bathhouses, pools lined with patterned Yao gems.
And the toys. I couldn't believe the detail about the wooden ducks.
Oh, the floating toys, carved from fine wood, covered in embroidery, just floating in the warm water. It paints a picture of a fantasy world, a bubble.
It really does.
And inside this bubble, we get this very strange, almost physiological focus on Yang Guifa.
The red sweat. Let's unpack that. It sounds like a medical condition, but the text treats it like a superpower.
It's meant to emphasize that she's an otherworldly creature. So she was plump, which was the beauty standard then, and she ran hot. The text says her sweat was red and fragrant, and when she wiped it off, it looked like peach blossoms on the towel.
It really drives home the Emperor's obsession. She isn't just a person to him, she's a treasure. A deity, almost.
Right. And because she runs hot, she suffers from lung thirst, so she keeps a jade fish in her mouth to generate saliva and stay cool.
Which brings us to the incident, the title of the toothache.
So there she is, sitting by the window. She's in pain. It's bad enough that she can't even hold the jade fish in her mouth. She's just leaning on her hand, suffering.
A very human problem. Even the most beautiful woman in the world gets a cavity.
Exactly. But the Emperor's reaction is what matters. He doesn't just call a doctor. He looks at her and finds her charming in her pain. He's so enamored that he says, "I hate that I cannot share this pain for you."
That line hits hard. I hate that I cannot share this pain.
It's the peak of his delusion. He's obsessing over this one small, manageable pain of his beloved. He wants to take that burden onto himself.
But at the exact same moment,
He absolutely refuses to take on the burden of the empire.
that's the contrast that just hurts. He wants to feel her toothache, but he refuses to feel the death of those 70,000 soldiers in the south. He refuses to feel the anxiety of the people living in the shadow of An Lushan's army.
It's a failure of empathy disguised as an excess of empathy. He has hyper-empathy for one person and total apathy for millions.
Meanwhile, we are talking about hard history.
We are.
We're in the year 751 AD, the Tianbao era of the Tang dynasty.
We are unpacking the famous or, infamous romance of Emperor Xuanzong and his consort Yang Guifei. But we aren't doing the Hallmark movie version. We're doing the true crime version. We're going to look at how a perfect romance, a perfect piece of fruit, and a perfect party were actually symptoms of a rotting government.
It's a fascinating case study in blindness.
How?
I mean, the sources we have paint a picture of a court that has become a complete echo chamber. The emperor's hearing exactly what he wants to hear, and the only person telling him the truth is a child who hasn't learned how to lie yet.
So let's set the scene. It's the summer of the 10th year of Tianbao. We're at the Lushan Palace, which sounds luxurious, but the text is very specific about the atmosphere. It is hot.
Oppressively hot.
Yeah.
Like really hot.
Right. It's the 7th day of the 7th month. That's the Qixi festival, which people often call the Chinese Valentine's Day. But the source material, it makes a point of saying that despite the festive date, the physical reality is, it's just uncomfortable. Emperor Xuanzong and Lady Yang are in the Hall of Eternal Life, but they can't sleep. The heat is just keeping them awake. So what do? They go outside. And this is the first detail that, for me, really stuck out in the reading. They don't call the entourage.
No.
I mean, usually these two can't go to the bathroom without a parade of eunuchs and maids. But here, they dismiss everyone.
That is such a crucial detail. It creates a vacuum. For just a few moments, all the pomp and circumstance of the Tang court, it just falls away. It's just an old man and the woman he loves standing at a courtyard, waving fans to catch a breeze, looking up at the Milky Way.
It feels incredibly intimate.
Most vulnerable, yeah.
And they're looking at two specific stars, Altair and Vega, the cowherd and the weaver girl.
The classic star-crossed lovers. And that mythology is just so deeply ingrained in the culture. These two celestial figures, they're separated by the Silver River, the Milky Way, and they're only allowed to meet once a year on this very night.
And you'd think, given that it's their date night, Lady Yang would be happy. But she isn't. She looks at these stars and she starts to cry. She has this sudden realization. She says to the emperor, "Look at them. They're apart for a whole year, sure. But their reunion is guaranteed. They're stars. They last forever. But us, we're human. We're going to die. Our party has a deadline."
It's a moment of, existential dread piercing the bubble of luxury. She realizes that being the most powerful woman in China doesn't stop the clock.
Not at all.
And Xuanzang, who is so deeply in love with her, he tries to comfort her. And his logic is fascinating. He says, essentially, I would rather be with you every single day and night and be mortal than be like those stars who live forever but are separated.
He's choosing the now over the forever.
Mhm.
But then human nature kicks in and they try to have it both ways. This is the moment of the vow.
The midnight vow.
Under the starlight with no witnesses, they pledge to be husband and wife in every future life. They try to bind their souls together for eternity. And the text quotes those famous lines from Baijuzi's Song of Everlasting Regret. I have to read them. They're just too iconic.
Please do.
In the sky, we wish to be birds flying wing to wing. On earth, we wish to be trees with intertwining branches.
It is arguably the most famous romantic couplet in Chinese literature. It's beautiful. But here it takes a very sharp turn. The Sui Tang Yanyi doesn't just let us sit in the romance.
Not at all.
It immediately undercuts it. It basically pulls the camera back and says, okay, now look at the hypocrisy.
It's so jarring. One minute you're tearing up at the romance, and the next, the narrator is bringing in historical commentary to just, roast them.
Well, think about the context. The source reminds us that Xuanzang had a wife, an empress. He kicked her out. He discarded her to be with Lady Yang.
Oh, right.
So there's this biting irony where the text asks, you're swearing eternal fidelity to a concubine after firing your wife. How much is this vow really worth?
It's the, if he cheated with you, he'll cheat on you argument, but for an emperor. And it gets darker. There's another poem mentioned that brings up An Lushan.
And this is the political shadow. The poem points out that while Lady Yang is swearing loyalty to the emperor under the stars, there are rumors, very strong rumors, about her relationship with An Lushan,
The general on the frontier.
the general who is gathering power on the frontier. The source is suggesting a double betrayal. The vow is a delusion. They're promising forever, while the seeds of the rebellion are already planted.
So the vow is the first union we see, a romantic union that is actually pretty fragile and built on hypocrisy. Now let's move to the second union. We're jumping from summer to autumn.
To September.
The heat wave is over, it's September, and now everyone is obsessed with fruit.
The Penglai Palace oranges. This is like a masterclass in how a dictatorship creates its own reality.
The backstory here is just wild.
No.
So years ago, the palace planted these citrus trees that were sent as tribute from the south, but they were planted in the north in Shenyang.
Yeah.
And biologically, that shouldn't work. The climate is all wrong. For years, these trees were just expensive green decorations, no fruit.
Until the autumn of 751. Suddenly, inexplicably, these barren trees just explode with life. The source says they produced over 200 oranges.
Wow.
And not just, mealy, bitter ones. These were sweet, perfect oranges.
And the emperor is thrilled. But then they find the one, the He Huan.
He Huan. It means a joyous union. And in this context, it's a botanical anomaly. It's a twin fruit, two oranges that have fused together during growth to become one.
And the emperor and Lady Yang just lose their minds over this. They see it as a physical manifestation of that vow they made in the summer. One heart, one body.
The universe is literally growing fruit to validate their relationship.
They sit down and eat this twin orange together like it's a sacrament.
It creates this feedback loop of validation. But this is where the political sharks start circling. Enter Yang goes on.
Prime Minister.
He sees this fruit not as a snack, but as a propaganda weapon. He organizes the entire court to write these elaborate flowery memorials to the emperor, and his argument is just breathtakingly sycophantic. He claims that the emperor's virtue is so powerful that it has united the climates of the north and south.
Wait, let me get this straight. He's telling the emperor, you are such a good guy that you terraformed the garden with your personality.
Essentially, yes. He says the earth spirit is responding to the emperor's greatness. It's magical thinking used as political currency. He's telling the emperor, everything is fine, the empire is united. Look, even the trees agree with you.
And the emperor buys it.
He wants to believe it. It confirms his worldview. He orders a painting of the orange. He distributes the fruit to the officials. It becomes this massive celebration.
But again, our source material is the total buzzkill we need.
Right.
There's a poem inserted right here that just pops the balloon and asks, what use are oranges to the Tang dynasty?
That is the million-dollar question. The poem argues that these miracles are actually dangerous distractions. They give the flatterers, the petty men, a cheap way to gain favor. If you can get a promotion by writing a poem about a mutant orange, why would you bother doing the hard work of governing? Why fix the roads or supply the army when you can just praise the fruit.
It's style over substance. The sweetness of the orange is masking the rot of the administration.
Exactly. The court is celebrating a miracle
Right.
while the foundations of the state are crumbling. And that leads us directly to the third segment,
This celebration.
the party.
The party. Because they found the magic oranges, the emperor orders a massive bash at the Kensing Tower. And this is where the visual storytelling in the text gets really vivid.
It's a spectacle. Music, dancing, and the common people are allowed to crowd the streets to watch. It's a moment of shared joy, supposedly. But if you look closer, the entertainment is incredibly dangerous.
Let's talk about the acrobat, Wang Danyang. The description of her act gave me anxiety just reading it.
It should. She is balancing a bamboo pole on her head. But this isn't a broomstick. The text says it is 18 feet long.
18 feet.
And on top of this pole is a heavy wooden carving of a mystical mountain.
That's already impossible physics. But then there's a child. A small kid is climbing up this 18-foot pole, standing on the wooden mountain, singing and dancing, all while this woman balances the whole thing on her head.
It's a display of extreme precariousness. One slip, one gust of wind, and it's a tragedy. It's a high-wire act without the wire.
And watching this is our hero of the episode, a 9-year-old boy named Lu Yan.
Lu Yan is a historical figure, a known child prodigy. At 9 years old, he's already been given an official rank in the Secretary Bureau. He's a genius.
So the emperor sees this smart kid at the party and decides to have a little fun. He points at the death-defying acrobat act and says, "Hey kid, improvise a poem about that."
A test of wit, and Lu Yan delivers immediately. He recites a poem that praises the skill of the dancer, calls it godlike. But he slips in a critique. He mentions her clothes.
He notes that she is wearing heavy silk robes.
Right. He says, "I worry that lighter clothes would suit her better." Sounds like a fashion tip, but it's actually a practical critique. He's pointing out that the court's obsession with luxury, the heavy, expensive silk, is making the job harder and more dangerous.
He values function over form.
Exactly. Which is already a contrast to the emperor, who is all about the form. Lady Yang loves the kid, pulls him onto her lap, combs his hair. It's a very human moment. But then the emperor tries to make a joke. He decides to tease the boy about his job title. Lu Yan holds the title of Zhengzi.
Which translates to what exactly?
Roughly, rectifier of characters, or proofreader. His job, theoretically, is to check official documents for typos.
Got it.
So the emperor laughs and asks, "So Mr. Rectifier of Characters, how many characters have you actually corrected?"
He's treating him like a mascot. How many typos have you found, buddy? But Lu Yan looks the emperor in the eye and drops the absolute hammer.
He says, "All the characters in the dictionary are correct, except for the character for Peng, which is not correct."
Except for the character for Peng. Okay, we have to stop and really unpack this, because this is the core insight of the entire episode. This is a pun, but it's a pun that explains why the Tang dynasty collapsed.
Correct. So first, we have to visualize the Chinese character for Peng. It means friend or companion. It is written with two identical vertical components side by side.
Okay.
They look like two crescent moons standing next to each other.
And in calligraphy, or just in the nature of writing, they often look like they're leaning against one another.
Right, exactly. They slant inward, they support each other. So visually, the character is not zeng, it's not upright, it's leaning.
So on one level, the kid is just saying, that letter is crooked, but that's not what he really means.
No, the double meaning is explosive. Peng also refers to Pengdang, factions, political parties, cliques.
So when he says the character Peng is not upright, he is actually saying,
Your court is full of cronyism. He is looking at the emperor, surrounded by people like Yang Guzong, who just wrote poems about oranges to get promoted. And he is saying, these people aren't loyal. They're just leaning on each other. They're propping each other up to stay in power. The entire structure of your government is crooked.
That's bold. He is calling out the patronage system to the patron-in-chief during a party.
It's a devastating critique of the Orange incident. I mean, remember, the Orange was a union that was faked. The Peng character represents a political union that is corrupt. The boy sees right through the glitter and the miracles. He sees the instability.
So how does Wenzong react? Does he get angry?
Surprisingly, no. He laughs. He thinks it's brilliant. He turns to his attendants and says, this kid is sharp.
He rewards him.
He rewards him with an ivory tablet and a silk robe. He even creates a prophecy for him. He says, I know that in the future you will be independent. You will never lean on others' doors. So he gets the joke, but he completely misses the warning. Completely. And that is the tragedy. He treats the truth as entertainment. He admires the boy's wit, but he doesn't reflect on the content. He doesn't ask himself, wait, why are my officials leaning? Why is my court full of factions? He just claps and moves on.
And the source material has a final word on this, doesn't it?
It does. The couplet that sums it all up. To correct the officials, one must first correct the monarch.
Wow. If the upper beam is crooked, the lower beams cannot be straight.
The emperor is the root of the issue. He's the one allowing the Peng character to be distorted. He is the one rewarding the sycophants with the oranges. He is the one prioritizing his romantic vow over the hard work of ruling. Liu Yan, the 9-year-old, he saw the symptom, the leaning character, but the emperor failed to see that he was the cause. Okay, let's shift scenes. Picture this for a second. You are, without a doubt, the most powerful person on the planet. We're talking the absolute height of the Tang dynasty.
The Hai Tang.
Exactly. You're Emperor Xuanzong. And you're sitting on top of this incredible structure, the Tower of Diligent Administration.
Which is kind of a serious name for what was basically a party tower.
Right. So you're up there, you've got your top ministers, the best wine, thousands of these gorgeous multicolored lanterns. It should be perfect, but there's a problem.
A very loud problem.
A very loud, very annoying problem. The people.
The people.
Down below on the street, there are thousands of commoners.
Yeah.
And they're not being polite. They're shoving, they're shouting, laughing, arguing. It's just chaos. The source we're looking at today says the noise was literally boiling.
So loud you can't hear your own party. It's ruining the whole vibe.
And for most emperors, really any ruler in history, the solution here is simple.
Oh, yeah. Send in the guards, crack some skulls, clear the square, problem solved.
That's the first instinct. Silence them. But in the story we're getting into today, that is not what happens. Instead of soldiers, they send out a single guy with a flute.
And he doesn't just play a tune, he weaponizes it.
A moment of music as riot control and the story of a prodigy named Limo.
It's just a perfect snapshot of that era. You know, we talk about the Tang as this great time for art and poetry, but this story shows you how that art was actually used. It wasn't just decorative. For Xuanzang, music was political power. It was a tool of control. And frankly, it was an obsession.
So let's really set the scene for you. You've got this Qingjin Tower covered in these beautiful flower lanterns. It must have been just, dazzling to look at.
Visually, a masterpiece. Acoustically, a total nightmare. The source uses this phrase, ren sheng ding fei, which means human voices bubbling like a cauldron. And you have to see the layout here as a kind of social mat. The emperor is up high, representing order, the heavens. The people are down below, just this chaotic, raw energy.
And Xuanzong's getting really annoyed. He's asking his staff, what is all that noise? And they're basically saying, look, boss, they're excited. They're fighting to see the lanterns. We yell at them. They're not listening.
And then they say, we're awaiting your imperial decision.
Which is code for,
can we please go hit them now? They just want the green light to start making arrests.
And he gives it to them. He says to strictly prohibit the noise and tells the Imperial Guard to go down there and display their authority. The text is very clear. He wants them to arrest a few people and punish them as an example.
It's the standard dictator playbook, right? If you can't control the narrative, you control the bodies. Violence is fast.
But this is where the whole story turns. Our advisor, Liu Yan, steps up.
And his argument is just so clever. He doesn't appeal to the emperor's kindness or mercy.
No, he appeals to his ego, to his logic.
He completely traps him. He says something like, Your Majesty, these people are only here because you allowed them to share in your joy. You invited them. If you punish them for being excited, it makes you look bad.
It's a brilliant move. He's saying, benevolent rulers don't need to crack skulls. It looks weak. So Liu Yan offers another way. He says, let the Pear Garden musicians play.
The Pear Garden.
We hear that name a lot. Can you break down what that actually was for everyone?
Sure. The Pear Garden, or Liyuan, was basically the Juilliard of the Tang dynasty, but it was founded and personally directed by the emperor himself. These weren't just court musicians.
They were elite.
They were the absolute elite, state-sponsored artists, the pop stars of the 8th century, and they answered directly to the emperor.
So Liu Yan's whole theory is that the common folk are so starved for, real culture, that if they hear this unheard of royal music, they'll just be stunned into silence.
It's psychological warfare, but with a melody. Shock and awe.
The emperor agrees. He calls off the guards, and the musicians walk to the edge of the tower. They're in these flashy brocade outfits, flower hats. They start to play. And what happens?
Well, it sort of works. The crowd sees them all standing there neatly in rows, and the noise drops a bit, but it's still there. A dull roar. You can imagine them just pointing, murmuring. They're not captivated.
Just distracted. It's background music. They need a front man, a solo act to cut through the noise.
And this is where the famous eunuch Gao Lishi steps in. He's the emperor's fixer. He gets it. An ensemble is too diffuse. To pierce chaos, you need one sharp, focused sound. He says, among all the musicians, only Li Mo is famous for the Qiang flute.
The Qiang flute. So what's special about that?
It's very different from a standard flute. It's a bamboo instrument, originally from the Qing people in the West. It has this very high, very piercing timbre. It's a sound designed to carry over huge distances, like across a desert. It's not a cozy indoor instrument.
So it's built for projection. Gao Lishi is basically saying,
Right.
put this guy in the mic.
And Li Mo knows exactly what he has to do. This is my favorite part. He doesn't just shuffle forward and start playing. He walks to the edge, looks down at this mob,
Thousands of people.
points his finger at them, and shouts.
He commands the whole square. He yells, I, Li Mo, by imperial decree, will play for you. If you know music, listen quietly.
If you know music, that is such a power move.
It's a challenge.
It is. He's saying, if you keep making noise, you're just proving you're an uncultured slob. If you want to be in the know, you'll shut up. He's creating a hierarchy of taste on the spot.
Then he pulls out his flute. And the source gets so specific here. It's made of purple-veined Yunmeng bamboo.
Which is just a way of saying this is a legendary instrument. This isn't off the rack. This is the Stradivarius of flutes.
He starts to play. And the description is just, it's beautiful. It says the sound rang through the clouds and made phoenixes soar and cranes dance.
Obviously some literary flair there, but it gets the feeling across. It was a sound that felt vertical. It shot straight up, cutting through all the horizontal noise of the crowd.
And the effect.
Dead silence. Total silence. The text says 10,000 people stood frozen, just listening.
Then we get this amazing line that sums it all up. Do not say that noise is hard to prohibit. One sound can silence 10,000 sounds.
It's just a profound moment. It suggests that high art has a coercive power that's actually stronger than brute force. The guards couldn't do it, but a piece of bamboo could.
It's the ultimate mic drop. But here's the thing, and this is where I want to pivot a little. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It worked because Emperor Xuanzang had built his entire world around music.
Absolutely. You can't separate this event from Xuanzang's personality. The source spends a lot of time explaining that he wasn't just a fan of the arts, he was a fanatic.
A total music nerd. It says he understood all rhythm and tones. He could compose on the spot.
But he had these really specific, almost strange preferences, and they tell you a lot about him. For example, he hated the zither, the qin.
Which is weird, isn't it? In Chinese history, the qin is like the ultimate instrument of the refined gentleman scholar.
Exactly. The qin stands for order, restraint, contemplation. It's quiet, it's intellectual. And Xuanzang couldn't stand it.
The text says if he even heard someone playing it, he felt like he had to go wash his ears to cleanse the filth. That is harsh.
It tells you everything. He didn't want repression. He wanted expression. He liked dynamic, sensual music. He loved the G drum and the flute. He called them the leaders of the 8 sounds. He was a romantic, not a classicist.
And he didn't just listen, he played. There's this incredible story in the source about him basically creating spring with a drum.
Ah, the spring light is good story.
Yes.
This tells you everything you need to know about his ego.
So paint the picture. It's early February, the rain has just stopped, he's in the garden, and he sees the willow and apricot buds are just about to burst open.
And a normal person would just enjoy the view. But his reaction is, how can I not judge the scenery? Which basically means, how can I not impose my will on this?
Right, how can I not get involved? So he tells his favorite consort, Yang Guifei, to get her jade flute. He grabs a drum.
And they have a jam session. They play a song he just made up called Spring Light is Good.
And the second the drumming stops.
The flowers bloom. The leaves have unfurled.
Okay, that's some straight-up Disney princess magic right there.
But look at his reaction. He turns to his wives and says, does this not make me the god of spring? He's comparing himself to Tiangong, the creator god.
And of course, they all bow and agree. But think about that. He honestly believes his sense of rhythm is so perfect, it can control the biology of plants.
It feeds this idea that the emperor is the link between heaven and earth. If his art is in harmony, the world is in harmony. He thinks he can conduct reality itself.
Which brings us right back to Li Mo, because there's a very specific reason Li Mo was the guy on the tower that night. They share this secret history. It involves a dream and a bit of musical theft.
This is my favorite part of the chapter. It's like a little detective story. It all starts with a dream.
Xuanzang is taking a nap. He dreams that these beautiful fairies come down from the sky playing a song.
A song called Purple Cloud Return.
And the fairies tell him, this is immortal music. But since you get it, we'll teach it to you.
So he learns it in his sleep. He wakes up, the tune is still in his head. He grabs his flute and practices until he's got it down perfectly.
But he keeps it a secret. He thinks, this is a divine gift. It's not for regular people, it's mine.
It's his private line to the heavens. He doesn't teach it to anyone.
Until a few nights later, he's going out undercover, slumming it with Gail Lishi. They're on a bridge looking at the moon.
And he hears a flute in the distance.
And it's not just any song.
It's Purple Cloud Return.
Do you imagine his face? He must have been like, wait, what? I dreamt that song. Who hacked my brain?
He's completely stunned. He's like, how is my dream song being played out here?
So they go full detective mode. They follow the sound, find the house. The next day, they summon the player. And who is it?
A young Limo.
The emperor basically interrogates him. Where did you learn this song? And Limo's answer is what proves he's a genius.
He says, a few nights ago, I was walking on the bridge and I heard a flute coming from over the palace walls.
So the emperor was just practicing his secret song by an open window.
Yes, but here's the incredible part. Limo says the rhythm was unlike anything from the human world, and get this detail, I used my fingernails to write down the notation.
On his fingernails?
On his fingernails. He literally scratched the score into his own hand because he didn't have paper, and he was so afraid he'd forget it.
That is next-level dedication. That's obsession.
Then he went home and figured it out.
So he reverse-engineered a divine song that he heard through a wall by taking notes on his own body.
Exactly. And he's terrified. He says, I deserve 10,000 deaths for this.
But Sezong isn't angry at all.
No, he's delighted. He loves it. He values musical genius more than protocol. He's found someone with the same ear, the same understanding that he has.
He immediately makes him the head of the Pear Garden.
And that's the connection. That's why on the tower, when they needed a sound that was not of this world to silence the crowd, they needed the one guy who could literally steal a song from the emperor's dream.
It makes perfect sense. He was the only one on the emperor's wavelength.
He was the physical expansion of the emperor's musical will.
So the story ends. The night is peaceful. Limo finishes. The full band plays. Dancers come out. And the crowd watches silently until dawn.
A perfect ending. Art triumphs over chaos. But the source itself ends on a slightly more cynical note.
It does. It throws a little shade right at the end.
Yeah.
It reminds us of the tower's name. The Tower of Diligent Administration. Qinsheng.
Right. Diligent. Like hardworking.
But the text asks, kind of rhetorically, they gathered at the tower to diligently seek pleasure. But when were they ever willing to be diligent about government?
Oof, that's a burn.